Om Sahana Vavatu Sahaviriyam Karvavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May God protect both teacher and student. May He nourish us together. May we work together with great energy. May our studies be enlightening. May there be no hate among us. Om, peace, peace, peace. So, do you have any suggestion or any thought on what we have spoken earlier last Thursday, or shall we pick the new subject? Since there are only 5 or 6 of you. So I was wondering if I could take a new subject today onwards. I was thinking of talking about mind and thoughts, or rather thoughts, because both are same. Mind is thought and thought means mind. So I was thinking of talking about thoughts and sharing with you. Maybe you can share your ideas about what is thought.
Acharya ji, I was just, thinking about asking that in a stability of mind, this, struggle or fight between mind and soul or heart, which we can say. Every time, whatever we are doing or what decision we are going to make, every time we have to struggle. And I think everyone does that. And sometimes your decisions or your thought goes in the right way, and sometimes it may be wrong. So definitely you are picking that subject. So I can say you just read my mind, what I was looking for.
That's so good. Yes. So there are things in our life that we take for granted, and we hardly pay any attention or give any thought on it. So today, let's talk a little bit about what is thought and who thinks and what is thinking. So let's ask ourselves a question. Where do we get thought from? Question 1. Where do we get thoughts from? Give yourself maybe a minute give your best attention on that statement. Where do we get thoughts from? Just think about, just ask this, where do we get thoughts from? And second, what is thinking? And the third, who is thinking? 3 questions. What do we get thought from? Oh, sorry, where do we get thoughts from? What is thinking? And who is thinking? So I will give out my understanding or my contemplation or whatever that my realization. It's not necessarily true. It's not necessarily the fact. It's just based on how I perceive them. And each one of you can share what you think about it. So let's begin. First, as I understand, thoughts are vibrant energy. It is energy. Although it is a very subtle but a physical in appearance, because it appears in our brain. And with the modern science today, you can measure your thoughts. There are instruments which can watch your thoughts, which can detect your thought, which can realize what you are thinking. So anything that can be measured, anything that can be checked has to be physical. If it is not physical, you cannot implement those instruments and find the results. So thoughts are extremely subtle but physical, and they are vibrant energy. It's an energy. So with your thought, with our thought, we can actually manifest what we intensely desire. And this is the result of what we know about Reiki or distance healing. How does that work? The healer, the one who is the Reiki master, is connected to the subject mentally with the intense sending out the positive vibration or energy and giving out that healing to the subject wherever it is. Whoever. So the distance, space, and time does not matter, because it is energy that vibrates. And you can give the direction to that energy. And so, in other words, thoughts are vibrant energy and a very, very subtle physical. Now, I'll try to give an example. When we ask such questions of what is a thought, or who is thinking, where does it come from, remember, what is more important? Imagine an arrow. This was an example. Actually, I read it in one of the book about Buddha, about Gautam Buddha. A disciple asked him the similar question, and his response, instead of giving reply about the thoughts and where does it come from, etc., he gave this as an analogy. He says, imagine an arrow pierced into the body. Just imagine that you are shot with an arrow into your body. Would you investigate where did it come from? Or rather get that out of the body immediately to stop pain and bleeding? What would be the immediate reaction? The immediate reaction would be to get rid of that arrow from your body, pull that out, so that you can reduce the pain and bleeding. Probably you can treat your injury. Similarly, what is more important is not where does the thought come from, but what is important is who is thinking. Who is thinking? Are you the thinker? So the practice is not to identify with thoughts in order to treat them as not you. You are not what you are thinking. There is a very popular saying which says that you are what you think about, or you become what you think about. Now, when you say you become, who is that you? Who is the thinker? So our awareness or practice is to identify who is the thinker, rather than thinking about who is or where does thought come from. Now, when you identify and contemplate on the question, who is thinking? who is thinker, and not identify with the thought. This is very extremely subtle, because right now, all of us are thinking, knowingly or unknowingly. There are some thoughts. So take a pause, sit back, maintain silence, close your eyes, stillness, and first watch, what thought have you got? And who is thinking? Then, as a study, you can then check, where does thought come from? But first, fundamentally, to know who is thinking. In reality, it says that thoughts are an influence of the tendency, which means our upbringing, our samskara, our vasana, tendency of our inheritance, our lineage, of our family lineage, our parents, our grandparents, our family lineage, or sometimes even the community, or the faith, or the circumstances. All these influences what we are thinking about. So it is not just one reason for having particular thought. What we think now, or probably, would have a root long ago. But there must be some memory in the memory storage. There must be a cause or an incident or an event that our subconscious mind picked up, and it reflects suddenly at any point of time in form of a thought. So usually how it works is that when you are in a situation, for example, now, take example of now, right now, here and now. When you are attending let's say a yoga class or a satsang of this kind, usually if you are attentive, your mind or your thoughts are restricted to the subject that we are talking about. You may not be, most probably, thinking of any other subject, of hopefully not thinking of any other subject at this point of time, but you are thinking in line with the subject that we are talking about. How does that work? Now, try to understand. Your ears are listening to what you hear. So that ear becomes a tool of listening. Yeah. Then that information, it's just an information. That information is an input into your brain through your ears. Now there are certain activities in the brain which instantly checks the memory storage. Now, probably during this lifetime, recently or long ago or previously, you might have been exposed to subject as this, one way or the other. It could be a reference, it could be a full-on discussion, it could be full-on satsang, or it could be just a mention by somebody. But that little information is stored. When at any point of time, same subject or more or less similar subject is heard, yeah, it connects, and then from that memory storage, it brings further information, and then the activity of thought happens. Then you start thinking about it. When I say you, I mean only your mind or your brain. Mind is, I don't like to use the word mind, it's your brain which is thinking. So it is such a subtle aspect of process of thinking. Now let me give you another example, how you can relate it to yourself. Imagine a subject or a matter that are not identified or recognized instantly by you. Anything, any subject or any matter. when you get an input as an information which you cannot relate to instantly, all right? It is completely strange for you, completely unknown to you, and it is not recognized instantly. In space and time and effort, it cannot be unfolded. You cannot unfold that information because you have no previous storage of it. So your brain cannot find it. What would your emotion, your instant reaction on response on it, that would be, I do not know. For instance, a subject that is introduced right now as an example is never ever experienced earlier. And a question is put to you, who is thinking or what is thinking? Because you have no reference of that subject in your memory storage, you would come up with saying, I don't know. When you say, I don't know, and if it is genuine response of really not knowing it, then what happens? Let me repeat. Any subject or matter that are not identified or recognized instantly need space, time, and effort to unfold it. You try, without your knowledge, your brain would try to dig out this from your memory storage. Yeah. So there's little space and time and effort required to unfold it. Now that is the process of thinking. That is the process of thinking. Searching of that response, if result of process is, I don't know. Now, remember, I'm trying to explain it, but in matter of fact, it happens almost instantly. You are listening to a question is put to you. Who is thinking? So what happens is, immediately that you hear that, your brain starts to find an answer, yeah? So there is a little space, time, and effort required to look out in your memory storage, to unfold. So there is a process of it. Now it could take a friction of seconds probably, and you cannot find any reflection, any reference of that subject. Now that search, that process is a process of thinking. You try to look for it, that's thinking. But when you realize that you cannot have answer, there is no storage of your memory of that subject, you would come up with saying, I don't know. And when that is really the truth, that you do not know, I do not know, it is a point which has no process of thinking, and hence no thoughts or answer. When you genuinely say, I don't know, which means you have stopped the process of thinking or searching that subject in your memory storage, and you come for a moment, a friction of moment, your brain sees. That means there will be no process of thinking, which is the state of thoughtlessness. There will be no thought on that subject. Try to remember, try to think about it, try to contemplate on it. It's very subtle. When we say we do meditation or dhyana, so dharana and dhyana, try to link it to that subject. It is a way to find that spot, to find that point, which is, let's say, almost a thoughtlessness. How does that work? You give a dharana to yourself of chanting Om, for example. Yeah, that's your dharana. Now you stay with that dharana, close your eyes, maintain silence and stillness, and keep on. So what are you doing? You are giving a direction to your brain to think of Om by chanting it. What happened result is, you go on, your mind is so occupied or your brain is so occupied only on concentrating Om each time, Om, Om, Om. Now, what happens at some point of time that your brain will not entertain any memory, any information, any reflection, or any thought at that point of time, because your brain is preoccupied in chanting Om or concentrating on Om. Yeah, so that's dharana. When you come to a point when your brain is only attending the chant of Om, and therefore you reducing the volume of thoughts, yeah, it becomes dhyana. The meditation happens only, which is samadhi, meditation happens only when your brain is neither chanting Om nor contemplating, but it is silent. Now, the meditation really happens only when you come to a point of thoughtlessness. Now, thoughtlessness is just a friction of moment. It could be 1 or 2 or 3 seconds or 5 seconds. But that 3-5 seconds is so significant because at that point of time, your brain was like dead. It was dead. It had no activity. Had no activity because there were no thoughts. There were no activity of thinking. That thoughtlessness is equal to samadhi or meditation. So its meditation is not to gain the thoughtlessness, but meditation is a result of a thoughtlessness. Try to contemplate on it. Now, for going further on this, all of us, as we all know now, is a body, physical gross body, then what we call a brain or a mind. Generally, mind is associated with thinking, and brain, which is intellect. So it's a bundle of BMI, body, mind, intellect. Yeah. Now, there's something called collective mind. Collective mind is in form of a bubble and it floats around us. So, for example, right now we are 7 of us. Wherever we are talking on a subject, and you are thinking about that subject. Without our knowledge, we are generating an energy, a vibration of thoughts. Forget about who is thinking, where is it happening, but that power, that energy, that vibration, we are letting it go. It is not only in the container of this body mind, but it has a reflection externally in your surrounding. Now, 7 of us are thinking on one subject intensely. You are contributing to what is known as a collective mind. Now, that collective mind is an energy. As we said in the beginning, thought is energy. And as the science has proved, and we know, the energy cannot be destroyed. It can change the shape, the form, or it manifests in different manners, but energy is eternal, is always there. So this thought, which we are giving out as a signal, remember, thought which is random, which is unintentional, has no effect. But thought with awareness, intensely, there is some amount of, even if it is just for a moment, but if you have given total attention to that subject and thought, not only it registers in your mind, in subconscious mind, but you are giving out the signal of that thought And as you as the individual, so are the other 5 or 6 individual minds or brain are thinking on the same subject at the same time. So that thought power, that energy is now into collection and form kind of a bubble, which is in the space, yeah, which is known as a collective mind. Now imagine a situation where, let's say, example of any sports, for instance, yeah, which is extremely popular in particular region or country. What happens when your favorite team is playing? People who are so fond of it would be completely engrossed in watching and expecting certain favorable result of the sport game. So there are intense thought process happening. For example, as Indian, you might be a fan of cricket game. So all of us, Indian team is playing against any other team. What is your natural tendency is that Indian team should win and should do well. Now, it's not only individual wish or thought, it's a thought of hundreds and thousands and millions of people, probably. Now, that thought is not only in your individual mind of those many people, but it has a reflection and it is formed as a collective bubble. Now, that collective bubble, it remains, that thought energy remains there. Similarly, different people from different region are thinking. Same example, me as Indian, not in India, but some other place, but have the same thought that India should win. So geographically, location-wise, my reflection of thought of winning India team, I'm contributing to that bubble and creating a bubble of thought energy here in this location around here. Similarly, some people live in US or Britain or wherever. Now, what happens ultimately, that bubble of thought is collected and become what is known as a cosmic mind or universal mind. So from individual mind, you join the collection, a group, and make a bubble around space. But when that number expands, it is the contributing to the what is known as a cosmic mind. Now, cosmic mind, unlike our individual mind, which we are only thinking about here and now, without knowing that our thought, what we have thought, let's say 10 years ago or 20 years ago, is there. The power of that thought, we might not recollect, but that because it is an energy, it is there, it is told. We spoke about the Akashic record. So it is already in the collective mind, which is part of the space, Akashic space or Akashic record. It is already there. Whenever you are exposed to the same subject or similar subjects, even after 20 years, when you get that information, your subconscious mind immediately picks up the thought signal from collective mind. Now it happens so instantly that there is no time, we can't measure the time. It happens right instantly. So that is why it is known that in reality, thoughts are conceived by a higher self, which is the collective cosmic mind. Because it is storage of all the events, we spoke about it in Akashic record, storage of all events, memories, thoughts, words, actions, everything there is a storage. Now, from that cosmic mind, as an individual, our body, mind, intellect are facing a particular situation or reference. Instantly, it has a link, it picks up the signals. And so the thoughts are actually always there in the cosmic form. Cosmic mind is there. There is nothing there new. It is there. It just picks up the signal referring to what event that you are, information that you have now as a body, mind, intellect. So the thoughts are conceived at the cosmic level. Our brain receives it. Signals are received by our brain. Then in the brain, we have a faculty which is known as mind, which perceives. So the thoughts are actually conceived by higher self or a cosmic mind, received by a brain, and perceived by our mind, individual mind. So thought, actually, you are not a thinker. When I say you, I mean body and mind or intellect. Without our knowledge, it has a reference to that point, to that storage, to that cosmic mind. And from there, our brain picks up the signal and our mind processes the perception. And that's how the thoughts are perceived by mind, and it does not stop there. Try to imagine a thought which has no word, whichever language. You may be Hindi speaking, you may be Urdu speaking, English speaking, German speaking, whatever languages you are using. All thoughts are based on words. Can you think of a thought without words? No. Also, all thoughts have something to do with the image or a picture. You cannot have a thought which has no image or a picture. That is why in our literature we say that the one of the reasons of a bhakti marg or devotion or worshipping a deity or visiting temple, for instance, is based on this understanding that Jnana Marga says that you meditate, think of that unmanifested energy, supreme energy. Yeah? But our brain is not capable enough to concentrate on something which has no name, shape, form, or identity. It is hard to concentrate. That is why the Bhakti Marg came about, to say, this is the deity, this is the temple, this is the place to go to worship. So it is narrowing down to and given some name, shape, and form so that our brain can then find it easy to connect. So therefore, this cosmic energy, it's so hard to imagine or perceive that the thought actually comes in from there, and it is always there. It's not new. We, at this point of time, have received, our brain has received, and we are perceiving it, our mind is perceiving it in reference to the similar situation or reference as it happened that time and collected in the cosmic level. It is not easy to follow, I agree, but therefore, these are the subjects that you need to engage your contemplation and keep contemplating. Now, it does not stop there. I want to confuse you a little more. So thinking, searching of this response, when you cannot find anything, as I said, when you say, I don't know, you come to a subtle point which has no process of thinking, and hence no thoughts or no answer on the process. And this is the state which is known as thoughtlessness. It could be a friction of moment, but that friction of moment is your meditative state. That is your meditative state. And as I said, all our individual thoughts, which are perceived, not received, not conceived, are coming from that collective mind or cosmic mind. And this is the storage of thoughts of every kind that were ever thought by many now, people living now, and ever lived before. So imagine, it's not the thought of yours and mine, but thoughts of people who have ever lived earlier. Their thought energy is still preserved in that cosmic mind. Now, I'm not talking about thought which has no significance. I'm not talking about thinking that what should I eat or not eat. No, I'm talking about thought which has let's say, a vital energy. So you do not give so much of energy or thought or time on thinking of what clothes should I wear today, what should I eat today. But when you appearing for an exam, for example, you are giving so much of thought as to what to prepare, what to read, what references should I pick up together. So the amount of your thinking is much more on the subject which is of significance. Now, those thoughts, those events are registered. In other words, every day morning you go and take a shower, you may have thought that 8 o'clock I must take a shower, or 6 o'clock I must take a shower. But that thought probably lasts for less than a second. Now, that thought would not have an effect or a significance at the cosmic level. When condition and experience of individual is in alignment with emotion that finds the counterpart in bubble of thoughts, is attracted and perceived. As I said earlier, today we are talking on this subject. When you are attending intensely this subject, your subconscious mind immediately finds a reference, a connection of this subject from that cosmic mind. And that is how a thought about it is received by brain and perceived by your mind. And then you will start asking question about it or contemplating about it. Asking question on the subject or contemplating happens only when a present piece of information is reflected and connected to that cosmic mind to find the reference. And then your brain will receive the signal, your mind will perceive that this has a link on the subject, and therefore you will have a process of thinking. And then you come up with some questions or some doubts, or you like to share your opinion. So you see how it is connected. And that's why you have the importance of the subject when we say stay in awareness, remain in the present moment, here and now. The purpose of that is to allow whatever is your experience here and now, you are allowing your brain to find the connection to that cosmic level, to that cosmic mind, get the reference, get in alignment with that thought of collective thought, and therefore you are able to contemplate on that subject. On, you say, oh, this subject is something very familiar to me. I know about it, or I have some information about it. It's just because your brain is receiving signals and your mind is processing it and thinking about it. So in other words, it has always connection to your tendency. Tendency is your vasanas and samskaras, which we are ignorant about. We do not consciously remember it, but it is, however, registered. It is there. So thoughts are voice of your own tendency. Now, once again, I refer it to the state of what we try to do during dharana and dhyana and talking about meditation. Awareness of emotions. So thought Feelings and emotions are interlinked. Thoughts, feeling, and emotions. You cannot distinguish between emotion and thought, or feeling and thought. Feeling is thought and thought is feeling, or emotion is thought and thought is emotion. But awareness of that can reduce cluttering of thoughts. So what is cluttering? Cluttering is more than one thought on that subject at a time. That's a cluttering. So as I said, ask yourself a particular question: who is thinking? And instantly your brain will find a reference from the cosmic mind, download it, mind will process it, and you will come up with your, let's call, answer. Now that answer could be more than one. Yeah, it could be more than one. And so that's why when your answer is more than one, it's cluster of thoughts. You have too many answers on one particular subject. Yeah, so I have mentioned it earlier. The meditation is the process, or not meditation, excuse me. The dhyana is the process of first aware of that volume of thought that you have at particular point of time. From that volume of thought, give a direction to your thought. And when you give a direction to your thought, you are narrowing it down to the subject that you choose. Remember, every yoga class, we start by chanting A, U, What is it? As I have mentioned many times, we are by chanting A, which is a representation of vastness that exists. By chanting U, we are narrowing down our awareness to a particular point. And by chanting we're trying to stick to one subject of bowing down in gratitude to our master, our teacher. And that is how the thought volume is identified, that you have 10 thoughts, for example. Then you give a direction to thought. Direction to thought means 10 thoughts could be of different idea. For example, what I'm supposed to wear, what am I supposed to eat, what time I have to call somebody, what are my meetings today. So 10 different kind of thought almost simultaneously. That's a volume. Then you give a direction that now I want to only think about what would be my meeting and what am I supposed to talk about. So you're giving from 10, you're narrowing it down by giving a direction to your thoughts. And then stick to one point and say, my subject is this. I'm only concentrating only on this subject, only on this thought. So volume, direction, and narrowing it down. You cannot have a state of thoughtlessness, which can last for a fraction of moment, if you are intensely aware. So therefore, the state of thoughtlessness is not the point of reference at this for us now. Our point of reference is reducing number of thoughts, giving direction to our thoughts, and staying aware on that subject. And this is why asking ourselves a question: who is thinking? Or what is thinking? Am I thinking? When I say am I, is this mind or brain who is thinking? Or is it the mind and brain is only a tool operating based on the energy of our consciousness, the power of our soul? So when you go back to our spiritual understanding that I am that consciousness, and in that consciousness, thought arises, thought exists, and thought will disappear. Remember, in that consciousness, which is what we are, In that consciousness, thought arises. Thought will be perceived or exist. And finally, in that consciousness, thought will perish, disappear. All that happens in the consciousness. And that is what we are. However, the consciousness is not affected by any of these process of thinking. Consciousness is free of thoughts. Think about it. Remember, this is the very important statement. Once the spiritual knowledge is, the fundamental spiritual knowledge is that we are not body, mind, intellect. We are not, it is something that we have acquired. It is something that we possess. When I say we possess or I possess, that capital I is the consciousness or the soul. Now, in that consciousness, every thought is received or arising. In the consciousness, it exists. If there is no consciousness, there is no question of arising it or existing it. It is only because of consciousness that it arises and it exists. And in that consciousness, it disappears. No thought stays forever. It comes and goes. And that is why, by and large, it says that average human gets approximately 60,000 thoughts per day. Now, if there are 60,000 thoughts, which are per day experience of average person, it is in that consciousness those thoughts arises, exist as long as it exists, maybe a couple of seconds or minutes, and it perishes or disappears in that consciousness. However, that consciousness is beyond the affection or any reference of that thought. It does not have any connection with the consciousness, because consciousness is remain completely unattached to anything or any thought or any emotion or any feeling. It enables everything to arise, exist, and perish, but it remains unattached. And that is what we are. That is the consciousness that we are all. And this is why the ancient wisdom says, be aware of your thoughts. Disassociate with thoughts and remain in continuous awareness that you are Sat Chit Anand, or consciousness. All these things come and go, and that's why that's not absolute reality. Whatever comes and goes, whatever has the existence or appearance and disappearance is temporary, and that is not what we are. We are the one which is permanent, and that's consciousness. Think about it. I would conclude here today by saying, repeating, fundamentally, thought arising from and exist in and vanishes into that. And when I call it that, I refer it to consciousness. And however, that consciousness is ever free of that. When I say that, I mean refer to the thought. It remains completely free. not I am thinking, but it is this body, mind, and intellect is a collection of mind and thoughts and feelings. The I is unattached. And the mind, as I said earlier, is all the time in touch. When I say mind, I would call it subconscious mind or superconscious mind, is all the time in touch or in connection with the supreme mind or a cosmic mind. And this is the fact that no science or no school is teaching, unfortunately, because it cannot be proved, number one. It can only be experienced. So coming the answer to our question, where do we get thoughts from? We get thoughts from the cosmic mind. Our brain receives it and mind perceives it. And what is thinking? Thinking is a process to find a reference on the information that you are facing now. As I said, ask yourself question. Immediately, without your awareness, your brain will start working and finding connection to the cosmic level, try to identify the reference, download it. When a subject has no reference, you come to a point, friction of moment, and you say, I don't know. That is the process of searching, and the result is, I don't know. When that happens, I don't know, for a friction of moment, your brain has stopped doing any effort of thinking. So many times it is, philosopher says, it is good indicator to practice, I don't know. Because when you are, and I mean it genuine, not the pseudo I don't know. The genuine point when you say, I don't know, you are giving yourself an opportunity to know and remain free of any previous attachment to the, as I said, trying to find the reference in cosmic mind. Because you cannot find it on that subject, and therefore you do not know. Your brain, it's not that it is not there. It is not that, as I said, everything exists in that frequency. It is our brain's inability to find it. And therefore you say, I don't know. And when you are in state of I don't know, and as you practice that, you come to a point where your brain is not processing any information, and therefore there will be no process of thinking. I would stop here and let you think about it, and if you have subject or anything to talk about on this.
Acharya ji, I have one thing to say. Whatever we have discussed about life after life, that also came from this thought process, no? It did not.
Yes, everything, when you ask question, is also a thought. Everything is related to thoughts, because thought is the process of your brain. And that's why the Western science says that consciousness is your brain. Brain is your consciousness. With other words, your thinking, your activity of thoughts. But if that is the question, that your brain is the consciousness, then what happens when you die? Does your mind, does your thought, does your tendency, your vasanas, your desires die? They don't die. And that is why there are more than sufficient references and proof that when the soul or in consciousness takes a rebirth, taking up the new body, it has the memory of previous desires and previous thoughts and previous life. So it is the mind or the activity of mind or your desires do not die. It's only the body that dies.
Acharya, I mean, those desired thoughts, they get transferred in cosmic mind or something. I mean, they do not die, but they transfer somewhere else. So when we take a rebirth, they come back to that particular soul or something.
Yes, so as I said earlier, remember that when we say soul, in our soul in English word, it's not easy to, let's say, explain. But when we speak about Atma, yeah, Atma. Now, all of us obviously have Atma, but at our level, this Atma is known as what is called Dehatma, which means the Atma which is embodied, yeah, which has acquired the body, mind, intellect. And that is your Dehatma. And we operate on that level. When you, let's say, pursue spirituality and gain certain higher knowledge on that, gain wisdom, you come to a point when you realize that you are not only Dehatma, you are actually Jivatma. What is Jivatma? Jivatma is the combination of mainly mind, intellect, and all other faculties of mind, such as fear, ego, greed, lust, let's say memory. These are the faculties of your brain or mind, we call. And that is Jivatma, which means the Atma has been covered by those faculties. Then when you come to further realization and as you evolved spiritually, you come to a point when you say, no, I am not that. I am not Jivatma. I am Atma, which is pure consciousness. Just pure consciousness is Atma. So these are the three levels, Dehatma, Jivatma, and Atma. Now, beyond that is the supreme or the what we call God, a particle. Imagine, I have given this example earlier, fire. Yeah, when you fire a wood, you see a light, you see a fire, you see the heat, you see all that. You also see sparkles going out of that fire. Yeah, we are those sparkles. So our origin is from that fire, but we got separated from fire. Now the spark from the fire exists for a couple of seconds and then vanishes. Similar is our case. That couple of seconds is equal to couple of 100 for us, or maybe 60, 70, 80, 100, 90 years, whatever is our age. There. And then the spark try to go back or vanishes. Now, as an energy, as I said, does not disappear. It always changes. It changes the form and picks up the new body. So that is called causal body. When you die, when we die, our desires, our attachment, our love, and our memory are stored in the form of a seed. And it is in the field or frequency known as causal body or Karana Sharir. Now, when the soul going through different frequencies, graduating and clearing, dissolving karmas, come to a level 3 or 4 of the ladder, which we have discussed earlier before. These are nothing but a process of purification. So when the Jivatma is purifying one after another, dropping all what is not our original nature, you come to a point when you realize you are Atma. at that point, you have a choice to come back and take the new body or remain completely in that frequency forever. Now, when I say to remain in that frequency forever, it does not mean end of the journey. It has a space to evolve further, to go to that realm of pure love and light and all-knowing, which is the supreme consciousness. But at that level of 4 or 5 frequency, you have a choice to come back to take a new body. Because until then, there is a subtle aspect of your attachment and your memory not cleared, and that brings you back. Now, when you taking a second body or new body from your Karana Sharir, from that seed, is attracted to that body, new body. And therefore, you come back in a new body with your previous karma, with your previous memory, previous these unfulfilled desires. That is the rebirth.
Acharya ji, Kapil here.
Yes.
One confusion on today's session. At one level, you're talking about the cosmic mind, which is the collection of all thoughts ever perceived in whichever mind. Then we talk about a situation which is relative to me, where I come to a situation where I don't know the answer to that question, and I come into a level of I don't know, which is the thoughtless situation. But there is a solution in the cosmic collection. So what am you're suggesting we go into a meditative situation where we stick on to the thoughtlessness, we don't need. But should we be seeking the answer to the solution, or should we remain in the thoughtless? There is a dichotomy over there I can't figure out.
Yeah, so here, first thing is that we have to identify, as I said, who is seeking answer. If your body, mind, intellect is seeking answer, one time or the other, your brain would be able to connect it to cosmic mind and derive the required information, connect it to that and perceive it through the what we know as a mind. And you are back to the state of thinking. When I say state of, for a moment of it, thoughtlessness, when you say, I don't know, it is a state when, as I said, it lasts very small friction of moment. When you say, I don't know, genuinely, what is happening is you are at that point of time referring yourself to that consciousness, because your physical body, mind, and intellect are unable to connect it to the cosmic mind and derive the reference. Now, why it does not get it? The reason is you're linked to your karmic account. You are designed, or you are in destiny not to find that reference, so that you can experience the moment of thoughtlessness, which means to experience your pure being consciousness. And that is the subject, that is the purpose of this, what we're trying to say, meditation. When you are deliberately trying to come to a point. Now this, as I said, I would not call the meditation, because the dharana and dhyana is something we do. Samadhi is something we don't do, it happens. When I say it happens because your subconscious mind has no reference, cannot find reference to any of these subjects, and therefore there is a lull, there is a period of thoughtlessness. And when you experience, when I say you, I mean your consciousness is then experiencing itself, self-experiencing self. And when I say self, small self experiencing capital self. And that's samadhi. When there is no, and that is why it is the state of thoughtlessness. But that happens. You don't do it, because when you try to do it, you are using your faculty of body, mind, and intellect. You are not remain the being. When I say remain being, which means staying in that consciousness.
Journey from darkness to light will Jyotirmay to Tamasamay to Jyotirmay will happen.
Yes,
will unfold. It's an unfoldment.
Yes, and you see, it is a process. At the same time, it is instant. When I say it is a process, it is process for your brain and mind, because you put an effort, you think about it, you work upon it. But when it is revealed, when the grace is downed, it is instant. So moving from darkness to light is a process, but experiencing light is instant.
So it's not a destination, it's a...
For this level, for us, for all of us, at this point of time, when we are still operating based on body, mind, intellect, it is our destination to experience that state of being, of experiencing just being consciousness. It could be for a fraction of moment. And as I said many times, it does not change anything, apparently, externally. But whatever is your indulgence, whatever activity you are into as the performing role, you would start doing it far greater, with the greater ability, greater efficiency. And that's the only difference. A monk, a Zen monk, was asked by a disciple that you are an awakened soul, but you are still washing your vessels. Why do you have to do that? He said, yes, I do it because it's my body which is doing it. The only difference is that when I clean my vessel now, my job is far greater efficient and my result is much more better than earlier, because I am in that moment, here and now, whatever that I do. So externally, there is no difference. But your journey, your attitude changes.
Okay.
Let's close our eyes and chant Om. Asato ma Sadgamaya Tamaso ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityoma Amritangamaya Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, God, for giving us air to breathe. Thank you, God, for giving us water to drink. Thank you, God, for giving us sun for energy. Thank you, God, for giving us food to eat. Thank you, God, for giving us good health and happiness. Thank you, God, for giving us positivity. Thank you, God, for giving us all that we deserve. Thank you, God, for your love, your protection, your guidance, your blessings. Thank you, God, for the existence. Thank you for giving me a chance to serve you. Thank you. Thank you. I hope you find some time someday to think about, I wouldn't say think, but to contemplate, keep questioning. Just question, don't find the answer, just question. Who is thinking? Thank you.